Hi everyone. So we are now, as of yesterday, officially halfway through our 4 weeks. So you've done a lot, but I'm sure as you look at your calendar, you realize that we have a lot to do in these last 2 weeks. We have our 2 exams, you have 2 more profile elements, and then your same amount of worksheets and quizzes. So I just want to talk about a few things that happened last week and the play into the kind of the rest of what we'll call the semester. The first is, as I noted earlier, please take a look at your profile pre-work. A few of you picked topics that either did not fit in the time frame or were on the list of saying you cannot do. And the reason you can't do them is because they were so large that there is way more information than you can successfully fit into the very small page size limit that we have going on. There's anything wrong with them. A lot of times they're kind of like, not necessarily landmark, but in some cases they are, where we really made historically a lot of changes. And so it just is not conducive to that short period. If we were doing a 15-page paper, they would be totally fine. But given ours is much shorter, I just take them off the table because people have not been successful in the past. And that's really where that list has come from, that students have done them and they haven't done well. So I take them off. So please check that. And then if that is you, please resubmit. You will notice that those of you that picked good events, or not good events, but acceptable events, you should see in your grade column, I believe it says complete or incomplete. So it should say complete. Those of you that haven't, you don't have anything in that grade column yet. So that's also another sign, go back, take a look, resubmit. So please do that within the late time period, which is tonight. Because remember, we were 24 hours or 48 hours. So with that being said, as the weeks continue, I start to see a small number of late assignments go down and going down and down, and more people receiving zeros. That's not necessarily surprising. However, there's such a small number of you, it's very, very noticeable. So please make sure you turn in your late work. So if you did not get your work completed on Saturday, remember you have 48 hours, 2.5% for every 12 hours to turn that in, so that 48-hour time period ends in about 12 hours, so 11:59 p.m. tonight. So please make sure you get either whether it's a Connect quiz or if it's an assignment, get those turned in. And then if you turn those in late, I look at them on Tuesday during my online office hours, and then I will post your scores at that time. Okay, other things to talk about. Exam 1 comments. I noted a couple of things in my note to you about this course. Remember, there was a 2-point curve based on 2 multiple choice questions that just were not successfully answered by a majority of you. So I gave you those 2 points back. Other things. In the short answer, for the most part, a lot of you were more successful, I'll say, with the short answer. And that's not surprising. I see that in the in-person class and in the normal 16-week session. So that's great. However, there are a couple of things that I just want to note. The first is make sure you're answering the full question. So in some cases, and I don't know how it displays to you on your side, but I put in how many points each question is worth, and I would think that shows up to you. So let's say we have a 3-point question. In most cases, that means there are 3 elements that you need to respond to. It could be list 3 things, XYZ, some question, and you'll see some of those coming up in your next 2 exams. Or a good example from this past exam was, what is an epicenter, what is a focus, and when are they the same? What I find happens, and again, there's such a small number of you that it always seems like a lot. There were a handful of you, or a noticeable amount of you, that only answered 2 parts of that. You said what the focus and what the epicenter is. So you could only get a 2 out of 3 versus being able to get a 3 out of 3 because you missed responding, we'll say, to that last part of the question. So make sure when you're going through your exam, you're reading the question fully so that you can say, yes, I answered all 3 parts. Another example was what magnitude does a tsunami need to be and when could it be, I don't remember exactly how it's worded, I'm sorry. When would it be weaker than that? A lot of you, or not a lot of you, but a few of you answered only the first part and not the second. Now, in some cases, I don't know, it may be that you actually just don't know, so you're not addressing it, which is, fine. I would like you to take a shot at it. But in other cases, I think sometimes it really is you just kind of read the question quickly, were finishing the question, and then didn't check to make sure you answered everything. So make sure you do that. Along with that, make sure you don't leave blanks. Now, in some cases, I can tell because when you submitted, I can see how many minutes you took. For some of you, I know it's if it's, especially if it's like the last question, okay, you clearly ran out of time, so you just weren't able to answer it. But others of you, when I look at your time, you're under 75 minutes, even by some of you, like by 10 minutes, and there are a handful of questions that are unanswered. I can't give you points if you don't answer anything. I like to give a half credit. It's actually more work for me to have to grade a totally incomplete answer because I have to type the answer in for you for feedback, rather than just addressing the parts where you may have had an issue, or in that 3-part question, I only had to answer 1 part versus all 3. So I don't like to see that selfishly for me, and I don't like to see it for you, certainly, because I can't even try to start giving you points. So in the future, please, unless it's a situation where you've run out of time, don't leave blank answers in the short answer. Try to put something down, because let's see if you can get that partial credit. And then the last thing I will say about short answer, and besides saying it to you, I don't know any other way to not have you do it. You should not be Googling your answers. And so the problem with Googling your answers is actually, there's 2 things. It's pretty obvious because I can Google the question and see what the number 1 hit is. And a lot of times when it is the number 1 hit, I get several people with the exact same wording on a question. But a lot of times it's out of context of our course material. So it may be a definition, we'll say. So what's one of the most common places I see it across semesters I've taught online is, what's the difference between risk and vulnerability? Okay. A lot of times I see an answer for risk and vulnerability, which is certainly one option of a response. It's not incorrect. However, it's not how we, in the context of this course, are defining it. And so what that tells me when you Google it, is that you don't know it in the context of the course. And some of the material, as you know, especially if some of you are going to go into specialized fields, there's terminology that is very specific to your field that doesn't necessarily translate directly to another field. And so by actually giving that other definition within your field, it's wrong. So try to avoid that, because those answers need to be within context. They can't be this generalized response, because I need to know that you actually have some idea what it is. If you had no idea what it is, just Googled it and fed that answer in, that's not telling me you know what it is. So just watch when you have the urge to do that. Again, there's nothing I can do. I don't stand next to any of you when you're taking your exam, so I can't be like, oh, you opened your webpage, you opened Google. So, I can tell you, don't do it. That doesn't mean you're going to, but that's all I can say to you. But so I will caution you then, if you are going to continue to maybe use that as an aid into taking your exam, which again, please don't. If it's not in context, you're going to notice that you may only get partial credit for it, because it needs to actually be aligned with what we're talking about in the course. Okay, so this is all important because in our super speedy 4 weeks, exam 2 starts on Thursday. So it'll open Wednesday night into Thursday, right? So again, however you think of time. And then it will close Friday night at 11:59 p.m. Very similar setup, right? So start with multiple choice, then it will go to short answer. Though, I guess I believe that's how it should appear to you, yes. It does scramble your answers, but I don't think it actually scrambles the questions. Okay, so again, 75 minutes, it's open for 48 hours. Take it when you want to, take it when it fits into your schedule. Strong internet connection, make sure you are prepared. Again, I would say, 80 to 90% needs to be just up here automatic. 10 to 20% can maybe be using your homework, or like I said, I can't stop you from using your online text and basically having it be open book. But make sure you are able to answer that good percentage, right? Because that could also be some of the problems of why I got so many blank answers with 75 minutes. It may have been you didn't get to finish because you were depending on looking up the material. And so then that obviously takes time. And so then you were eating into your time because you didn't know that. So just make sure you are still prepared. This entire section, as you're seeing, is now based on climate. So we did climate basics, which that material was due Saturday. We're now talking about, again, if you're kind of moving through, we're going to talk about precipitation and lightning. Then we're going to talk about severe weather. And so that is thunderstorms, tornadoes, microbursts, or downbursts, which is straight line winds that come down to the surface and then expand outward. And so if you haven't read about that, you'll read about that. Derechos, which are straight line winds, dust devils. So a couple of other kind of not super common, especially geographically. They're kind of a little more contained. But what classifies severe weather, and then hurricanes. And so those are their own kind of group as well. And then, sorry, extreme temperature, I missed that. So hot and cold issues that we have. Okay, so that is all going to be on Thursdays into Friday's exam. And then we finish up with our flooding, fire, and mass movement. Sorry, couldn't remember. So the last thing is the profile outline that's due this weekend. Again, this is really to make sure you are hitting every little piece of that rubric. So go down to that profile folder. I know it's all the way at the bottom. Look at that information and you will see the rubric there and how your points are kind of divided out. The outline, you'll notice like the meat of the rubric, so the non-formatting, timing, all of that kind of stuff is what is then transferred into that outline, and so you should be able to find the outline. What I would suggest while you're doing your outline, if you haven't started yet or you haven't been doing it yet, if you have started, is in your outline include your citations. So right next to it, the source that it's coming from, so that when you're going to insert that into your profile, it's already right there. You don't have to look it back up, because it's great to have an outline, but it really doesn't help you timing wise if you're like, oh, but now I have to have in-text citations in my profile and I don't remember which of my sources this came from. Okay. With that, sorry, I did have a question about this, so I'm glad I just thought of it. You have to use a textbook. It is encouraged, I'll say. The goal is that you use our online text. So we cover every hazard that you're going to cover. In your profile, I don't think anyone picked a space impact, which we're not actually covering due to time. But so you should be able to go into your chapter of your textbook and find something relevant to your specific event. Some of you picked events that are in the textbook, even better. If not, physicalgeography.net is a great resource. It's an online textbook. It's a general physical geography textbook, but they do talk about hazards within there as well. And then some of you, depending on your type of event, will be able to have another type of open source textbook that covers, say, like there's a book on earthquakes or there's a book on volcanoes. Okay. But really, you shouldn't have to look too far, because you should be able to use our own class, the Abbott textbook. When you're citing that, don't cite it as Connect, cite it as the actual textbook. So it would be Abbott, comma, Patrick, or P, and so forth. If you're having issues with citations, I will be posting some help, and then email me. I don't know if the Writing Center is open this summer. I'm going to look into that, but they are a great resource too. If you're near campus or around campus, they can help you. But so look for that coming probably within today or tomorrow. Definitely by tomorrow when I have my online office hours, I'll sit down and make sure that's in there if I don't get to it today. Okay. As always, I know it's fast. I know a lot of you are working through it well and you're trying to stay a little bit ahead, which is great. Just send me some emails if things start to unravel or you're confused about anything, so we can get on top of it and stay on top of it. Because we're 2 weeks left, and this is probably the busier of the 2 weeks than what we just finished. All right, so late work, please, resubmission of your profile topic, if you do not see it complete in your grade category for that. All right, keep me posted with any emails if you're having issues.